All right. We are live. Let me just drop a little note in the old Discord, huh? We'll give a minute for everyone to trickle on in. And we're gonna get this party started, man. It has been a hot minute since I've been on one of these calls. I'm excited to see everyone. Like I haven't talked to you guys in a long time. Before we get this party started, I want you to drop a little message in the chat. Say, yo, what's up? Hello, howdy. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Put a little message in the chat, all right? And we're just going to give maybe a minute before we get kicked off and we get into the fun stuff. So in the chat, people, where are you tuning in from? Drop a little message in there, all right? And then we're going to get this party started. While I wait, I'm going to put a message in Discord. Done. All right, don't be timid, guys. Don't be timid. You can put a message in the old chat. There we go. Aristotle, a young, wise Aristotle. We got the other side of enough, aka Mr. Drew Haney, Autopia Wholesale, Autopia. I'm not quite sure what that means. Oceanside, California, though, representing San Diego County. Guys, this is going to be a really fun call. I haven't done one of these in a while, and frankly, I love these calls. When I get on these calls, I get juiced. I woke up this morning, I was pumped. We got a lot of really fun stuff to cover. Now, obviously, the central theme for today's call is SellerIQ. It's a new feature we just released in Land Insights. This has been a pet project, honestly, of mine for 6 months, maybe a little bit longer. And I'm really excited just to kind of walk you guys through it and share why I think that this is a game changer in 2026 and why I'm using it in my own business. We're pulling all of our data through SellerIQ, which if you guys don't know, is a lead scoring system that's inside of Land Insights. And the cool thing is, if you're on Land Insights Lite, you get access. If you're on Starter, you get access. If you're on Pro, you get access. Everyone gets access to SellerIQ, and it's 3 cents, aka 3 credits per scrub, no matter what plan you're on. So it's accessible across the board. Before we get into that, though, we've got some really exciting announcements, guys. So I guess I'm just going to hit on that before we get the party kicked off. So 2 really important announcements that I want to share with you. At the end of this month, some of you guys may or may not know, we are releasing LIA 2.0. In fact, I've been in this studio right here for the last 2.5 months. I've spent 50 hours in this chair with this camera here filming LIA 2.0. And this is frankly, my pride and joy. And I think we put together an amazing product. From a course perspective, it's LIA on steroids. Any course is going to have gaps, right? The gaps inside of LIA in its original form, not enough content on due diligence, not enough very, very in-depth sales content. We cover, for example, how to handle every objection under the sun. I mean, just a little more oomph when it comes to sales. We talked a lot about acquisition process, but not a lot about the technicals of sales. And what I've learned is, as a new land investor, for most of y'all, that's the needle mover. How are you on the phones? And then, of course, do you have a process that you can follow? We cover our entire new cold calling playbook. We've created a choose your own adventure, right? When you join LIA 2.0, you can say, hey, I want to be a direct mail land investor, or hey, I want to be a cold call land investor, because in my experience, these are the 2 best marketing channels for new investors to start with. I've tried them all. I've tasted the rainbow, tried all the channels, battle tested. These are the 2 best. Now, if you go the cold calling route inside of LIA 2.0, it splits off into a 3-part division. You could either go, hey, we'll show you how to hire your own cold call team. We'll show you how to cold call yourself. We'll show you how to use a cold call agency and what to expect there. And so we've given more optionality to kind of meet our members where they're at. LIA in its current form has always just been like, just mail, just start with mail. And there's a lot of reasons that I believe that to be true, but I've noticed there's a bit of a diversity in terms of people's situations, and so we wanted to meet people where they're at. But that's not the most important thing. While I think the new program, the course is phenomenal, the most important thing is that LIA 2.0 is actually not replacing LIA in its current form. Even though the name is a bit confusing, they are completely separate. LIA 2.0 is its own course, its own community, its own coaching program that's completely separate from LIA 1.0. And the reason that I did this is that I had a bit of like not a midlife crisis. That's definitely the wrong way to explain it. But I had like a bit of an epiphany that I'll just quickly share with you guys. About 4 to 5 months ago. And the epiphany is, it's so funny. Like, we get into business because most of us either want freedom, right? Or we get into business because we love doing the thing, right? Maybe you love knitting sweaters for cats. And so like you start a cat knitting sweater business. And then, you scale that. And then 3 years down the line, you're not even doing the knitting anymore, which is the thing that you loved. You're now doing operations management, whatever. Or in the case of the person that wants freedom, they're like, screw a job, I'm starting my own business, but then they end up working 80 hours a week. It's very easy to create a business that becomes a bit of a prison. And I think to some level, that's actually what I had created for myself, not with just LIA in particular, but with Land Insights, with LIA, and also with my land business. And I thought about, like, if I were to die today, what would be the thing that I'm proud of? And I think one of the things that I'm most proud of, frankly, is the 500 plus people that we've worked with inside of LIA and the hundreds of lives that we've changed. Like, straight up, that is one of my biggest points of pride and something that I take a lot of fulfillment in. And that's why I started LIA to begin with. It was a passion project because I love coaching. I love working with people. I love seeing transformation. I love seeing the light bulb moment. And hopefully, if you've been in LIA, hopefully you felt my passion. That's what I love. The business stuff is secondary, whatever. But the problem is, it grew. And then I was spending more time on the business than I was spending on the thing that I loved, which is coaching. That's a problem. I don't want to be sitting on meetings and doing back office stuff when I could be sitting here talking to you guys or on inside of a coaching call. So I'm like, why don't I build something to where instead of having 500 people go through it, we could have 5,000, 10,000. And to do that, you need a business model that's more approachable. And so LIA 2.0 it's kind of scary to release because it's pretty radical. It's a monthly subscription that you can join when you want, you can cancel when you want. I'm so sick and tired of seeing people placing objections on themselves. People that say, Sumner, and we hear this all the time, I want to join LIA, I don't have the money, or this or this or this or this or this. That's so annoying. I just want to remove all potential objections. You figure it out. No sales call, no pressure, no nothing. Join if you want, leave if you want. What's going on with these? Sorry, I got some banner craziness going on here. Now, to be clear, of course, the fulfillment inside of LIA 2.0 is not the same as LIA in its current form. LIA in its current, what is this thing doing, guys? This thing is going crazy. Hold on. Why is it's on a 10-second timer? Who would ever want this to be on a 10-second timer? Timer off. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to show you guys the wait list. Okay. Of course, LIA in its current form is a $10,000 program. There's a lot of cost to run the fulfillment that we do inside of LIA that we can't do in LIA 2.0 because it's a very affordable monthly subscription. So of course, they're not exactly the same. Inside of LIA in its current form, we run 15, 16 coaching calls a month. LIA 2.0 in its new form is going to be 2 coaching calls per week. There's a lot of things that we coach on inside of LIA 0.0, a lot of hand holding that we do currently that won't carry over into LIA 2.0. So you want to think about it. It is a truncated version. It's almost like Land Insights Lite versus Land Insights Pro. So of course there's a difference. But I still think that we've engineered a system with how good the course is that people actually will need less hand holding. Now, of course, you still get access to our coaches and you get a private community and you get the coaching calls and all that jazz. But my realization was I just want to focus on the things that I love, which is coaching. To me, that is top priority in my life. So why don't I just make it so it's really easy for people to join and I can work with as many people as possible and there's no objection. There's no I have to find the money. Join if you want, leave what you want. notes. You can't even get on a sales call. Like, we've truncated our team from the back office of LIA, and we're just focusing on coaching. And that's releasing this month. And something that I'm quite proud of. It's a little scary, I think it's a big change, and I kind of, yeah, it's a bit scary. Now, if you're in LIA 1.0, as I've talked about before, you are getting grandfathered into LIA 2.0, time matched for what's on your contract. So if you have 8 months left in LIA 1.0, that program's still running. We're still going to see you through the end. Of course, we're not leaving anyone high and dry. And then at the end of LIA 1.0, you also get another 8 months in LIA 2.0 at no additional cost. So you're getting time matched for your time inside of, you get essentially access to both programs, and you can do them in tandem, or you could do it after the fact, which might make more sense. And let me be clear, like, again, a $10,000 program, there's a lot of cost that goes into fulfillment that we can't achieve in LIA 2.0. But I think we figured out a system to where we built a course that requires less hand-holding. And of course, we still have the coaching, the hand-holding there. Anyways, I'm rambling. I put the wait list down below. For the first 50 founding members, we're doing a massive discount, 37% for life, grandfathered in. It's landinvestor.co/waitlist. It's dropping at the end of this month. Once we hit certain member tiers, price will stair step up over time. So put it down below. Quite excited. All right. Now, second announcement. Okay. Let me see if I can share my screen, huh? I saw Drew Haney in the chat. Hopefully you guys know Drew Haney. Drew runs Rooster Capital. He's a deal funder, kind of like a beacon in the land space. I think a lot of people look at Drew as a friend, if they know Drew, of course. I think there's a lot of folks that consider him a confidant, a friend, trusted partner, if you will. And he runs the event out in Colorado. So him and Peter run the Supercars and Land event. They ran it last year in June, and then the year before in June as well. He reached out to me a couple of weeks ago and was like, dude, let's do an event. And I'm like, okay. And he wanted to do an event in Pakistan. What is going on with these banners? I'm so sorry, guys. These banners are out of their mind. And I was kind of like, yeah, dude, Pakistan could be freaking sweet. I've always wanted to go to Pakistan. But then we got to thinking, and we're like, I don't know how many folks are going to fly out to Pakistan for a land event. Some will. Fortunately, a lot of you guys just aren't super adventurous. Some are, some aren't. And over the last 1.5 years, really since I moved to Bali, I've been getting so many requests of like, Sonar, when's the Bali meetup or the Bali mastermind or the Bali event? And so we were like, screw it. Let's do just that. I am so sorry. These things are driving me insane with these banners. I don't know how to turn off the timer here. Anyways, let me share this link here. I'm going to see if I can pull it up without any of this annoying riffraff. Timer off. Save. Should be simple, right? Here we go. So March 18th through the 23rd, we're doing it, people. We're doing what's been requested. Drew and I are partnering up, and we're running a freaking insane mastermind / retreat / whatever you want to call it. We booked out one of the most beautiful venues. In fact, let me just share my screen here. 25 spots available. I think we've made it incredibly affordable, if I'm being honest, considering the other international land events that I've seen. I think it's a really affordable price. This is the first time I've ever released this page. So we're essentially opening up the cart now. And here it is, 5 days in paradise. We rented out the commune resort. This is the resort. This is actually the resort here. We got a private surf break out front. It's a beautiful resort. It's a resort really focused on wellness, multiple gyms, sauna, ice bath, yoga studios, multiple farm to table restaurants. Like, it's one of those venues that it just nurtures you. Like, you're so at peace there. And I stayed there in March of 2024 when I first came to Bali. And I said, at some point, I'm going to run an event here. It was like this place was made for me. Like, outdoor gym, like, it just had it all. They put up lights on the beach at night so you can do night surfing. I'm like, this is the freaking dream, people. And so it's just this really cool blend for this event of, having deep rest and being nurtured at a beautiful venue like that. adventure. I mean, snorkeling, sunrise volcano hikes, Balinese cooking classes, like across the board. But most importantly, the way I'm looking at this is like setting the foundation for 2026. 25 people is the perfect size to where we can crack into every single person's business and lay the foundation for this year and frankly for years ahead. Now, in theory, I would love to do this in January and have a very clean start, but the cookie crumbled here in March. And that's okay. That's relatively still the beginning of 2026. And so like this really cool blend of like rest, relaxation, play, adventuring all together, and then deep diving into every single person's business. And this is kind of like the dream for me. This is kind of like the dream event. So yeah, I'll put the link down below. What's really cool is that we cover all food, we cover all drinks. The cost of the ticket covers your stay at the hotel. We cover all transportation minus your flight. We cover all the activities, all the excursions. Everything is covered in the cost of the ticket, which is why I think this is pretty special. I think it's a very approachable, very affordable event considering what it is. The other cool thing is when Drew and I looked at tickets for March to Bali, and this is part of the catalyst as well, the most affordable tickets I've ever seen to Bali. Sub $1,000 flying out of California. I don't know what they're at currently. So yeah, anyways, guys, standard ticket is 5,000 buckaroos. I think all things considered, it's actually a pretty insane price. You can bring a +1. There's an add-on for a +1 if you got a business partner or something of that sort. And of course, we've got our baller level ticket for those that want to just ball out at the beginning of the year. Luxury beachfront suite. I mean, you name it, pretty insane. You can see all of the details here. And the folks that are on the baller ticket, we're getting a private dinner with me. As Drew said, pester Sumner with unlimited questions every evening during our sunset cigar time. Yeah, guys, this is really like the dream event. Like it's all the things that I love wrapped up into a package. I think for the right person, it'll tickle your fancy. So that's what I got for you guys. Yeah, should be really, really fun. So let's talk about what we came here to talk about. Let's talk about land insights, huh? Who here, put it in the chat real quick. Who here has used the new SellerIQ? Anyone? Drop it in the chat real quick. I'm curious if anyone here has used SellerIQ. And while we do, let's pull up old land insights in the interim. And we're going to shift the old banner. These banners are driving me nuts. Never again. Let's drop a link here. Put it in the chat, guys. So let's see who here. Not yet, but watched video earlier this week. Cool. Peter's used it. Okay, sweet. Let's talk about it. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go through some data examples. I'll walk you through it in the platform, but I also really want to walk you guys through the back end of how this is created. Now, I'm just going to get it out of the way. I'm not going to reveal the black box of how this system works. Okay, that would be crazy. That's like the ultimate trade secret. That's what I've worked my ass off over the last 6 months to figure out. So if you say, Sumner, can you explain to me all of the filters that we're using to figure this out? Lovingly, no, of course not. That's what makes it valuable. So just FYI, I got to get that out of the way. I know it's a question that I'm going to get ad nauseum. Let me share my screen. So I'm going to just tell you guys kind of an interesting little tidbit. So SellerIQ was built all off of my own data. All of my own land deal data in my business is what we use to figure out what are the actual like catalysts or mechanisms or mechanics that make someone really hot versus someone that's really cold. Before we get into this, let me grab my water real quick. All right, we're going to go long here, so I need to stay hydrated. Because one of the things that you'll see in this business is it's pretty polarizing. Like if you generate 100 leads in a month in your land business, you're going to get people that say, jump off a bridge, never talk to me again. And then there's also going to be people that kiss the ground that you walk on because they said, this is what I've been praying for. I need to get rid of this property to do X, Y, and Z. And so I'm like, how do we find more of the people on the right side of the spectrum that actually need what we're offering? Because most of the sellers that we work with is pretty interesting. Most of the sellers that we work with, I would say, I mean, I don't know, 99 plus percent, we have such a good relationship with them at the end of the transaction. A lot of the times they say, thank you. Like, this was exactly what I needed. In fact, a lot of them try to like become friends with us, and a lot of them actually refer us other business, as crazy as that is. I mean, I shouldn't say a lot, but a few times per year, we'll have a seller that refers us someone that they know that wants to sell a property. And so it's like, okay, when we work with the right people, they love what we do. So I'm like, how can we find more of that? Put it inside the chat. Who here on this call is getting, sellers reaching out to you, telling you to buzz off, drawing phallic symbols on offer letters and doing all sorts of riffraff? Put it in the chat. Who here has experienced that? I can't be the only one, right? Who here is experiencing sellers being crazy, telling you the craziest things? Yeah, they call me ugly. I get that all the time, man. Now they're real mean, right? Why do I have to contact these people? Isn't there a way to decipher who we should be contacting? And if we look at a lot of other more like mature industries, especially with like this AI boom, you're seeing more and more of this lead scoring concept. Like it's popping up in all sorts of industries. And so I'm like, cool, there should be something similar here for land. So what we built out here, I'll just share real quick so you guys know where to find it. So we're inside of the data platform here in Land Insights. Should look pretty familiar to everyone. We'll just scroll down real quick and you'll see under the owners tab right here, you'll see SellerIQ. All you need to do is toggle this on. Now, I need to be very clear. SellerIQ is not doing property scrubbing, okay? What I mean by that is if you want to have all bad properties removed or funky properties, that's still going to be in the AI scrubbing area. So we're not lead scoring, if you will, based off of the quality of the property. We're lead scoring based off of the owner and their ownership profile. So just to make sure there's no confusion here, they're not one and the same. The other thing is that SellerIQ actually isn't even a scrub, it's a labeling system. And I'll show you guys that here in a second. We'll go through some data together. But we're not scrubbing out bad leads. We're just labeling all of your leads or everything inside of your data set. And so the way it's broken down is into 3 categories. When you use SellerIQ, you've got high probability sellers, medium probability sellers, and low probability sellers. Now, in our business, currently, we remove the low probability sellers. We keep the medium and we keep the high. In the last 2 years, based off of our data, and this is really how we built this system, so maybe there's some confirmation bias here, I don't know, very possible, but I still thought it was quite profound. In the last 2 years, we've acquired well north of 200 properties. I don't know the exact number, but the last 2 years, only one acquisition in our business was a low probability seller. Only one out of 200 plus deals. We ran this system through Ryland's deals. Same thing. All of the action is medium and high. So that's where I want to be spending my time. If you think about nowadays, let's say you want to do 10 deals a month on the acquisition side in your land business. I don't know. Let's just say you're doing cold calling. I mean, fill in the blank. You could use any marketing channel. But to do that, you might need to make, oh God, I don't know the exact math with cold calling, but let's say you need to make I don't know. Let's say you need to pull 300,000 records. That's probably about right. You're going to need a handful of cold callers to get there. So you pull 300,000 records. Let's say you get a 30% pickup rate. That's what we are getting in our business. So 90,000 people pick up the phone. And then from there, I don't know, maybe only out of the 90,000, maybe you only have like 10,000 connected calls. And a connected call, in my opinion, is anything that runs longer than 2 minutes. And then from that 10,000, maybe you get 700 leads in your CRM. And then from there on month 1, you convert 10 contracts or whatever the math is. That's freaking insane. Think about like how whittled down that data gets and how much slop and waste is in that system. 300,000 records turn into 10 deals. So I don't know if we can solve this entirely, but I think we can get pretty damn close. Now, of course, this is still in its maturation phase. I'm sure Seller IQ will evolve and improve over time, and we'll get even better at whittling down our data. But really, what we're looking to achieve with lead scoring of any kind is it just a few things, right? And let me just kind of set expectations. Like if I was using lead scoring for any marketing channel, this is what I would expect. Now, are you going to see an uptick in response rate? Probably. There's no, I mean, yes and no, right? It still depends on your skip tracing and things along those lines if you're doing cold calling or texting. But because we're in theory reaching the right people, yeah, we should see an uptick in our response rate. But really, where the magic happens is in quantity of marketing per lead. Even if our response rate doesn't uptick that much, if we're just reaching more of the right people, we need less marketing to get a lead in our CRM. So let's say you're doing, I don't know, texting, and it takes 400 texts to get a lead in your CRM. Can we pull that down to 300 texts or something along those lines? The next metric that I would look for right out of the gate, of course, ultimately ROAS is the main thing, but that takes a while to generate. It takes a while to actually have that data. But the next thing that I'd be looking for pretty much within a few weeks or right out of the gate is lead to hot lead conversion. So how many of the leads that we're putting in our CRM are actually qualified? And lead to hot lead, I mean, a standard land business might convert at 10 to 15%. Of course, everyone's definition of a hot lead is a little bit different. My definition of a hot lead is pretty simple. That's someone, a seller, who is likely to sign a contract or, in quote, sell their property in the next 30 days or less. Now, of course, we never know for sure, but there's enough motivation where they're looking to get something done right now. Sometimes that 30 turns to 60. You never know exactly, but roughly that's what we're looking at when I think about a hot lead. There's a timeline there. There's enough motivation for them to make a decision quickly. You might go from 10 to 15% to now 20 or 25%. Because again, we're just getting more of the right people into our marketing funnel. And then from there, of course, we think about, okay, out of those hot leads, how many are open to receiving a verbal offer? Out of the verbal offers, how many are willing to review a contract, and so on and so forth. And so that's ultimately what we're looking to achieve right out of the gate with lead scoring. And you should see that relatively quickly. Now, I encourage everyone, benchmark this, test it. Now, of course, you're going to need a sample size. You can't just test it with 500 records, but test it, give it a few weeks and see what the data tells you. Now, to really drive a stake through this, right now what we're doing is we're running a true case study experiment. We'll be publishing all of the results publicly to show you guys exactly what you can expect in terms of all those metrics that I just talked about. Now, of course, we'll also publish ROAS. That will take time to generate. That takes months to have a reliable data set. Before we move on here, questions. Aaron, can you do the seller IQ on old data we pulled and skipped already? I only see it in the initial data download. Yeah, good question, Aaron. So right now it's only for the initial data download. At some point, we will have it kind of like how you can just skip trace inside of here. At some point, we'll have a tab here to where you can upload old data. Really wanted to ship this as quickly as possible. I think it was kind of like a cool kick off the new year feature. So right now it's for new data, but certainly we'll get to the point where you can run old data through, and that is a goal, and we shouldn't be too far out from it. But I keep on going through this diatribe. I keep on saying the same things. I've been saying it all last year, and I'm going to continue to say it. I really think that the land business where we're headed right now, it used to be a spray and pray game, right? People just drop mail and get deals, and there wasn't much thinking to it. But nowadays, I think we're more in the, not to use a violent example, but more in the sniper era, which is, how can we become more efficient in our land business? Because there's two ways to scale. You can say, hey, I'm doing 5,000 letters per deal. Okay, I'm getting a deal that makes me 30 grand. It takes me 5,000 letters to get it. So the first natural response to growing your business would be, cool, if that's our conversion, let's just do more. Let's send 50,000 mailers a month opposed to 20,000 mailers a month. And that's fine. That's one lever that you have to grow. But the other lever that we have to grow is we can think about efficiency. So how could I go instead of 5,000 letters per deal to 3,000 letters per deal? And we can use that as a lever for growth. And I don't think that's an area that's really been explored heavily. Most people, it's just okay, we're profitable, just do more and just do more. And that's fine advice. But I think efficiency is the name of the game. The two buzzwords that I have for the land business this year is efficiency, okay, in terms of how your conversions work for every part of your business, and skill. Right? The skill era, I've talked about that a few times. Your skill as an investor, as an operator, all of that jazz. Those are the two things this year that I'm really bullish on. So let me, I got to change my tab real quick. Um, actually, I'll just, before I change my tab here and share my screen to a different page, everything else would be, standard operating procedure in terms of exporting data. Let's say that we wanted to go to, I don't know, Teller County, Colorado. For some reason, I always use that as a fallback example. Let's say we're going to do, hey, show me the 30s to 120 acres. Let me just turn off the MLS comp so it's not too noisy. Okay, cool. You'll put in your AI scrubbing filters. Okay, cool. Keep all vacant land. Let's remove HOA parcels. We'll do wetlands flood zone 30%, 30% as a maximum. We've got SellerIQ turned on. Because I've got this turned on, I really don't need to mess with this stuff too much down here. SellerIQ, and then what I will reveal about the black box algorithm, if you will, is that it's leveraging both very obvious motivation points and very non-obvious motivation points. It's like an inverted bell curve. It's like obvious, extremely weird, and using that to find motivation. Because what I learned going through every single deal I did for the last 2 years, there's a very clear pattern, and there's very weird things in that pattern, but the pattern is super, super consistent. So if I'm using SellerIQ, I'm not really going to be toggling with a bunch of this stuff. You could think about it if you want, but this pretty much solves for almost all of the owner motivation filters. Um, I will exclude some certain keywords. So we'll come in here. We'll just say like state, county, BLM, federal, Colorado, teller, utilities, I don't know, something like that, right? We'll just scrub it down. I'm not going to skip trace this. I'm going to add my AI market value estimate. And so we'll come over and we'll export this. And I'm going to share with you guys the export. So give me 1 sec while I change the screen here. Obviously, we can just kind of scroll through and see what's inside of this data set. We won't see the tagging inside of here for high, medium, and low probability. That's going to show up in our spreadsheet after the fact. You can see that this is being billed at 3 credits per record. So it's 3 cents per scrub. And that's true if you're on Lite, Starter, or Pro. It's unchanging. So let me just share my screen on a different tab here real quick, guys. Boom, boom, boom. Yep. All right. Let's share my screen. Boom. Before I share my screen real quick, any questions, guys? Questions on this so far? We're going to do a juicy Q&A at the end. Of course, we can talk about anything. It doesn't have to be SellerIQ, but any relevant questions thus far, just to take a quick pause before we move on. Nada? Any reason you didn't deduplicate? That's just a mistake on my end. Yeah, no, I always run the dedupes, and I also deduplicate, and I keep the larger parcel. So just a mistake on my end. Nothing? Okay, you guys are too smart, man. Too smart of a group up in here. I really do think we've got the smartest land investors in our community. I'm just going to be honest. I'm just going to say it. The people inside of our community, you guys are sharp as a tack. I did something interesting where I interviewed a bunch of land investors at the end of December. Some of them were Land Insights users, some of them weren't. Like it was just kind of like a full spectrum. And there is definitely a delta in who is in different communities. Like there's pretty clear. Anyways, let's stop this screen share and let's start a new screen share. How about that? Okay. So here is our clean Teller County data. So this is just how the export comes out. I haven't modulated this or anything like that. I typically just create like a copy. So I usually just go make copy, and then I'll just create like a cleaned up version. So if I'm going to use it for sending mail and I'm going to send it to RPM or whatever, I don't include all of this stuff in here. I'll have like a raw export, and then I'll have like a cleaned up export. And then same thing if you're going to, send it to ready mode or something like that for cold calling. Of course, you'll manipulate this spreadsheet. So this is just how the sheet comes out. Now, if we scroll all the way to what the hell? What the hell? This is called Little Dick. It's very odd. Don't know why that would be the legal description. Little Dick Montezuma. That is crazy. That is the strangest legal description I've ever seen. So if we scroll all the way to the back, you're going to see the last tag in your export is going to be SellerIQ. Okay. So anytime you use it, this is always going to be at the end of the spreadsheet. Make sure you scroll all the way over to find it. Now, I just sorted this. It'll just tag all of them as the export comes out, but I just sorted this. So I sorted it so we can cascade medium, low, and high. Okay. Currently inside of this data set, there's 133 records. Okay. Now, what I would do here is I would remove the low. So in the low, we've got 27. So we go, let's just do some math here. 27, 133. Yeah, you've got about 20% of your data in this case here that's not up to snuff. That's not worth marketing to. That's a pretty consistent figure that I see across the board for a lot of our data in our business. It's about, I don't know, 15 to 25% of most markets where these folks you just really shouldn't be contacting. Now, I think the benefit here is actually twofold. Let me just put it in the chat. Who here has a team? Who here has a team in their business? Who's not a solo operator? Can someone let me know in the chat? Whoops. Shucks. Who here has a team? That's not right. We got all sorts of different views. Put it in the chat. Who's got team members, employees in their business? Maybe it's a acquisition manager or a lead manager or whatever. Don't be scared. Put it in the chat. I think there's a lag between what I say and seeing things in the chat. So Peter, Aaron, Bars 3815. Okay, cool. So the obvious benefit is oh, ROAS, you make better return on your marketing. That is true, and that's the goal. That's awesome. But what I've learned in my land business, especially in the last year, oh my God, this is the thing. Obviously, acquisitions is the bedrock of what we do. It's kind of the point of value creations, right? That really is where we lock in a good deal or a bad deal. And so once you have a team and you start generating oodles and oodles of leads, and what I tell people inside of LIA, and they don't believe me in the beginning, but I'm like, give it a year or two and you'll realize that lead gen is the easy part of this business. It's easy to generate leads. There are a lot of people out there that are interested in entertaining an offer for their property. The hard thing though is to make sure that your team is spending time with the right leads. Holy crap, is that hard? Every single week, my team on the acquisition side, we go and we hit dead ends, right? We spend a week working a seller to find out, I don't know, something crazy. The brother on title refuses to sell, or they send the contract to a lawyer and the lawyer kills the deal, or they change their mind, or I'm going to list with my realtor, whatever. There's so many situations where we invest, we work with the seller just to find out, nope, it's just a bad fit. It's just not going to work. And so what I tell my team chronically is you guys need to get really good at pre-qualifying. You need to get really good at figuring out, if I give you 100 leads, which are the leads that you should spend your time in and invest in, which are the ones that you shouldn't. Because time is the constraint here, not lead generation. Lead generation is very easy. Time is the constraint. So there's two ways we can think about doing this. We can think about doing that on the acquisition side. So manually, your team gets really good at pre-qualifying, looking at the subtle signals to say this seller is hot, this seller is not. Or we can also solve it through marketing. getting marketing better at tightening up the funnel so we serve them up better leads and we avoid giving them a lot of crap. And so what I'm seeing here in our business is our team is just taking more shots on goal. If an acquisition manager in our business is going to make 75 dials a day on average or 100 dials, whatever it is, can I get it so instead of 10% of those dials being to relevant leads, now 30% of those dials are to relevant leads? That's the freaking magic, man. And so it's buying back your team's time and redirecting that time to the right opportunities. For me, that's the main thrust. Also, what I've learned with our acquisition team is that there is a real mental fatigue to dealing with crazy sellers. It's like, we're humans. If you are going to start off your day and your first call is to someone that's absolutely heinous, crazy, rude, like just weird, that really does set the tone for the rest of the day. That affects your team. And so I want to ideally get them in a situation to where the calls that they're taking ideally are more relevant than not. This is also one of the reasons why I think having, Pat Live in your business is important to shield your team from crazy stuff. Or even the next step is having like a lead manager or an appointment setter. We really want to protect the sanity and the time of our acquisition team. To me, that's the real thrust here. Let me look at the chat. Rylan says, I'm going to start testing markets with a high leads. Market checks out, going medium and high leads for SellerIQ. Rylan says, hey, Uncle Sam, what's up? Nephew Rylan, you got a question? Let me know if you got a question. Does that make sense, guys? Is that clicking though? I think ROAS is like the obvious, like, oh, that's really cool. But it's the time buyback and the time redirection to the right opportunities. When I got started in this business, the first year, maybe year and a half, I didn't have Pat Live. So I was taking the intro calls and all the acquisition calls and the follow-up calls and all that stuff myself. And god dang, when I got Pat Live, I bought back my sanity. And of course, I performed better on my acquisition calls. And ultimately, that's what we're looking to do here. Can we buy back time and buy back sanity for the team? Guys, that's kind of the main thrust on this. I mean, I don't know if there's any questions. It relatively is pretty darn simple. I recommend removing low. We should be looking at buying back about or removing about, let's call it 15 to 25% of our data in that process. I think there's a lot of people that have this kind of misnomer where they I hear this a lot. They say, Sumner, I don't want to scrub my data too much. I'm not getting enough data, right? I say, how can I hit 20,000 records a month? I'm doing too much scrubbing. It's like, no, that's the goal. The goal isn't to hit some arbitrary marketing amount. A lot of people like to flex. They're like, I'm doing whatever, 50,000 mailers a month, and it's kind of like a badge of honor. Screw that. It's efficiency that matters. I know people inside of LIA that have built businesses that do, over 500 grand a year in profit, and they're not even sending 10,000 mailers a month. That's the goal. And so don't worry about filtering your data set smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. That is a really good thing. And let me just walk you guys through how we're filtering our data today. And I'll explain how much data is getting removed for us. It's pretty bananas, but that's the goal here. So let me just adjust this real quick. Let me make sure you guys can see my screen. Yeah. Okay. So obviously we're using AI scrubbing. Okay, that shouldn't really surprise anyone. We're using AI scrubbing. I'm using the road frontage for bigger acreage properties where subdividing is possible, right? So if I was marketing to like the 5 to 10 acres, I'm probably not going to use road frontage. But if I'm in like the 20 plus acres, I am going to use road frontage. And most likely what I'll do is I'll tighten this. So I might do 30 to 120 acres total, but I might have multiple exports because I want different road frontage numbers, right? So for 30 to 40, I might come in and put like, okay, it's got to have like a minimum of, I don't know, 1,000 feet of road frontage or something along those lines. Now, the way to figure out that number is to figure out the road frontage that you need for child properties and then kind of reverse engineer that for the exemptions, right? So if I was going to do 30 to 40 acres, and I know, for example, if I could take these down to 10 acres, but a 10 acre needs 200 feet of road frontage, then I'm just going to reverse engineer that math. And that's how I come up with the road frontage numbers. Right now in our land business, I think we've got five active subdivides. some that just got listed, some that are in the process right now. And a lot of our subdivide volume literally just comes from this. Like I'm not doing anything special. I'm just cherry picking bigger acreage properties. And so the subdivide end of our business has really picked up in a big way. We used to do maybe one or two a year. I think this year we'd probably do 20 plus. And road frontage has been a big part of that. I don't use it for smaller acreage stuff, right? And then, when I'm done with this, I'll export this and then I'll go, okay, like 40.1 to whatever, 60. And then I might update this road frontage math. Okay, cool. Now I'm at 1,400 feet of road frontage, et cetera, et cetera. I usually you leave all of these on. Sometimes I'll remove the highway stuff. It just depends. We'll come down here. We'll use SellerIQ. As Pete said, we are going to deduplicate, okay? So we'll deduplicate the larger parcel. I'm going to use my keyword exclusions. Okay. We'll use skip tracing. This has actually been an interesting question that's come up a lot recently. Okay. Obviously, we released a new premium skip trace about a month ago at 3 cents per skip, which is pretty unbelievable. There have been some folks that say, but Sumner, it's not at the same hit rate as your guys' previous premium skip trace. And that is true. It is, we are using a different skip trace provider. And there is a slight delta in terms of hit rate, right? I don't care. I do not care. I've been using standard skip tracing in my business for the last year for our cold calling, for our texting, because we've ran the numbers on it. Let's say with our previous premium skip trace, we might have been at, I don't know, 95% hit rate or something like that. And let's say with the new premium skip trace, you're at 87%, 86%, whatever. The cost savings for me more than makes up for the difference in hit rate. And that's why in our business, we literally use the standard skip tracing because it's 2 cents. We might skip trace 300,000 records a month. That incremental difference in hit rate is not worth it for me, at least at scale. Now, there are times where if I'm doing very niche skipping, I might want more of like a premium plus or an ultra premium, which is something that we will be adding in, a premium plus. But the unit economics are horrible. It like to have something that has 99% hit rate or something ridiculous like that. It is super expensive. I don't think most people would be willing to spend 10 cents for all of their skipping to have a 99% hit rate or something along those lines. That we will add it in for select use cases, but just as an FYI, that hit rate delta does not really concern me. It's the cost savings that's the needle mover for me. Like, that's the thing. If I was using Premium Plus based off of the price points that we've seen from providers out there, I'd be spending somewhere around $30,000 a month on skip tracing in our business. Instead, we spend about $6,000 a month. That 5, 6, 7, 8% hit rate difference just isn't worth it at scale. Now, again, there are targeted campaigns where it becomes relevant. If we go up here, one thing as well, we've got the vacant land only on. I'm actually going to turn this off. I use it sometimes. Instead, what I actually like to use in most situations, though, is we'll come down to structure. I don't mind a property that has a structure on it, but I don't want a massive structure, right? I'll put like 700, 800 feet of road frontage. We're dealing with a deal right now that's really frustrating. It's a double close and it's got a nice cabin on it, like a really nice cabin. And someone spent a lot of money on the cabin. But the cabin is so nice that the seller doesn't want us to have buyers walk the cabin. And it just creates all sorts of trickiness. And to get the deal sold, we actually need to clean the interior of the cabin and like pressure wash the outside. So I'm okay with small structures. I'm really, in most cases, not trying to buy stuff that has like real houses on it because it just adds an added element of difficulty in a lot of situations. So we got our skip tracing on. We got, I don't use the KML. I do keep the AI market value estimate in our data. So I'm at 6 records. That's amazing, man. I want low volume. I don't want massive volume for the sake of flexing a big marketing number. One thing that's important as well, if you guys are doing texting at scale, cold calling at scale, one thing that I really cannot stress enough is using these filters down here. And this is going to chop off a lot of your data. In some markets, it's 25%. Some markets, it could be 50%, depends on the state. But federal DNC flag, state DNC flag, and previous litigator flag. I believe those are very important nowadays for texting, for cold calling, or if you're doing stuff that's crazy like RVMs. I can't stress that enough. I've just seen too many unfortunate situations with people not following the rules and getting, slapped on the wrist because of it. And so I recommend stay safe out there. So this will be another filter to your data, and that's okay. All right, guys, let me look at the chat real quick. I think we've got some questions. And we can kind of move into the Q&A section, I suppose. So if you guys have general land investing questions, I'm happy to move the topic to that. I'm all ears, man. Whatever you guys want from me, I'm happy to go through it. I really like from the bottom of my heart, I want every single person on this call to, I don't know if I can swear, but freaking change their life in 2026. Like everyone on this call and the people that watch it later. So I'm an open book, man. Whatever you guys want from me, whatever you guys want to talk about, no bars hold, or however the saying goes. We'll answer it all. All right, let's go through here. Scroll up, scroll up, scroll up. One guy called my phone 64 times, text, voicemails, and YouTube comments. That's insane. And that looks simple. We'll start using our next data poll. Bars, what's the biggest difference between medium and high? Well, like I said, I won't get into the kind of the black box around medium or high or low and kind of talk about the system of how the sausage is made. What I'll say, bars, for what it's worth, we do market to medium and high. There is still relevancy in medium. One of the things that can show up too, no data set is perfect. So in a lot of cases, we might be looking at 100+ data points to start building this kind of filtering system for SellerIQ. But in some cases, there's actually a lack of data. Not every record has perfect, clean data across the board. And so there is a kind of a knockdown, like we'll downstep a lead, also partially based off of data availability. So that does play into it. So you could have someone that actually in reality is a high probability seller, but no matter how high or low we look, there's only so much data we can pull on them. And that would also downstep in some cases. So that is part of it. But of course, all of our motivation flags and signals, not all of them are binary yes and no. Some of them are a bit of a gradient to some extent. So it's just like a sliding scale. But again, for what it's worth, medium and high. Now, if I came into this business and I had 2 nickels to rub together and that was it, I'm probably just going to go high, right? Let's imagine you joined like LIA 2.0 and you started and you had like a lot of time on your hands, but you had no money. And you said, I'm just going to build my land business with this thing right here. And you can do that nowadays. Like the way we teach inside of LIA 2.0 as it relates to cold calling and cold calling yourself, possible. You need a lot of time. It's a grind for sure. But if I was doing something along those lines, I would be sourcing just high probability. So kind of ranges on your situation. But if you're marketing at a decent scale, medium and high is what I'd be pursuing. Sabrina, stoked about the mail savings for someone like me who's just getting started. Yeah, I mean, we think about, Sabrina, just in the math that we looked at here, we're talking about in this data set knocking off 20% of our marketing spend. That's pretty freaking huge. Like that's really sizable. But I think, again, the more important metric is, Sabrina, you're new in this business. So also your time might be limited. So also it's like when you are on the phones and you're working in your business, can we have more meaningful conversations with the right people and less stuff that's a dead end or a fugazi? I don't know how to say that. Autopia. Are you able to program it to eliminate the low probability sellers before the download? It's a good question. Not currently. Perhaps at some point we'll be able to. The thing about this Autopia wholesale is it's not like the AI scrubbing. So with the AI scrubbing, it calculates it immediately, right? So if I remove like the HOA flag, we go from 6 parcels to, well, I guess that didn't make a big difference. Let's say we remove the landlocked. It goes from 6. Okay, that doesn't make a big difference in this case either. Maybe we do the bad slope. Okay, so we went from 6 to 18. So boom, it populates in real time. The SellerIQ does not populate in real time because we're pulling from so many data points. It's not going to update immediately. So there's a way that we could do it, but it doesn't give you the optionality currently. So it's only post export inside of your spreadsheet that you see that. But at some point we certainly could. It is certainly possible, but it is different than AI scrubbing and how it pulls in real time. Okay, unbridled photography. Would you recommend for someone that's starting on a very tight budget, or this for a more advanced business? No, great question. I'm glad you asked that. No, that's actually why we didn't just make this a Land Insights Pro feature. Okay. Land Insights Pro, it's $1,500 a quarter. If you're brand new and on a tight budget, probably doesn't make sense. But Lite, Land Insights Lite is free. Starter is, it's a few bucks a month essentially for starter. And so the lead scoring or the seller IQ is on all plans because it is just as relevant for a new person as it is a more senior person. So we wanted it to be across the board, and there's no difference in price. We very easily could have had it so Lite is 5 credits and Pro is 3 credits or whatever. I wanted it to be approachable for everyone, whether you're brand new or not. Rylan, it's great for a tight budget. If you don't mail the low seller IQ leads, you don't need to pay for mail in those leads. Yeah. Guys, I need to take off. This is Drew Haney. Hit me up in Discord if you have questions on our Bali mastermind. Yeah, you guys can look up Drew in Discord if you guys got any questions. Tobacco Barn. Sumner, forgive me if you already hit this at the beginning, but what info are you aggregating for seller IQ? Yeah, Maddie, I covered this in the beginning. That is the black box, right? There's no advantage, only downsides for us revealing the system of how we're actually generating this. It's kind of like the secret sauce, right? It's the Thousand Island secret sauce at In-N-Out or whatever the hell that sauce is. It's kind of our thing, right? So I'm not going to reveal the mechanisms behind it, but what I will say, I mentioned this earlier, it's kind of like an inverted bell curve. Like it's some obvious filtering points that you'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then some really weird filtering points. We were looking at everything. Do they shop online? Like, are they pixeled and cookied on they're buying things on websites? What kind of car do they drive? Everything. So yeah, it's kind of a full spectrum of obvious and non-obvious. I won't go through the actual mechanisms because I'm sure folks out there will look at this and say, well, we're going to copy it. But you can't copy what you don't know in terms of how it's actually built. So yeah. Land Insights changed my life, but Sumner Healy stole my car. Okay. That's funny. I have so many people who want to sell their houses to us. What can I do? Yeah, great question. This is actually something that you can use to your advantage. People that want to sell their house. Okay, let's talk about this because this does come up relatively frequently. There's first off, what we should be doing more than likely is filtering our data, right? So trying to remove this stuff so it's not cropping up in our data is going to be the best thing to do. I don't think most people are able to successfully, wholesale houses and wholesale land and subdivide land and then title land and run all of these different business models in the same business. That's really hard to do. Actually, 1 second, guys. So my recommendation is to niche down your business. If you're just getting started, bars, just get good at one thing. I don't like it when people try to wear a bunch of different hats. They're like, I'm starting out. I'm going to learn how to do paper lot entitlements, and I'm going to flip land, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Pick one model, one strategy, one approach, and master it. It's like inside of LIA, what we go after is what we call mid-market properties. Okay, these are properties that are on average between $25,000 and $250,000 as the list price. We look to flip them. That's just a really easy place to start to master. So I would want to naturally remove houses from it. It's not in my wheelhouse or whatever wheelhouse you decide to start with. Now, here's the interesting thing though. As you become more proficient in this business, bars, there is a very interesting strategy where we're actually deliberately pursuing houses, but it's still a land investing strategy. So let me explain it to you. The backbone is you do need to get good at knowing how to subdivide land. Okay. Subdividing land is its own business model, its own skill. It'll take time to understand that. But once you learn how to subdivide land in that process and you become proficient at it, you can actually deliberately pursue big acreage properties that have houses on them. And this is a unique strategy because no one's really targeting that data, right? Everyone's filtering out houses. So there are a lot of pieces of land that are 40 acres, 100 acres, 1,000 acres, whatever, that have houses on them that aren't getting offers. And so once you know how to subdivide, that can be a separate kind of business line or strategy within your business, where you can deliberately pursue houses for subdivides on big acreage properties. But in the beginning, just master one thing. And so the way I look at it is you master one thing, then we add another strategy, and then you master that and you can add another strategy. These are what I call playbooks, right? Little playbooks, little strategies. And it's the same thing with marketing channels. I think the cardinal sin that a lot of land investors make is they get like a little bit of success with whatever, direct mail or fill in the blank. And they're like, okay, cool. Now that's my signal to go add on RVMs or cold email or texting or fill in the blank. No, what we want to do is pick one marketing channel, master it, then bolt on another. It's the same thing with strategies or playbooks in our business. So in the beginning, scrub it out. Down the line, you can think about it as a strategy. Aristotle, favorite cigar? Dude, that's a good question. I honestly have such a bad memory when it comes to things like this. I don't know if I have a favorite, to be totally honest. Of course, I love a good Cohiba or a good Cuban. I don't know if I have a singular favorite. I'm still a cigar novice, to be straight up. And I haven't actually had a cigar in months. So I kind of go through phases. I go through seasons where I really like them. One thing that's cool though is at the Bali Mastermind, unlimited cigars. So we've got unlimited cigars for everyone there. At night, we'll do evenings on the beach, smoking a cigar. We got a beautiful restaurant on the beach. We'll have dinner right there, smoke a cigar after. So there'll be a lot of cigar smoking, and we're going to make sure that we're equipped with a wide range of delicious cigars. And this is why I love this event. This event is Sumner style, Andrew style. Like we both have a similar kind of style. Like it's exactly what I would want for an event. We're going to go get a crazy workout, hit the ice baths, and then go mastermind for 3 hours. Then we're going to go climb a volcano. Then we're going to come and have an amazing dinner. Then you're going to smoke a cigar on the beach. Then the next morning, we're going to go surfing. Like, that's my life. I want to share that with people. I think it's such a cool way of living. So it's really like Drew and Sumner's style melded into one. So we'll be smoking lots of cigars if anyone comes. Denny, would it make sense to scale this process up? Denny, I don't know what you're referring to. What do you mean by scale this process up? I'd love to know. Lightning, it doesn't filter the list, just shows up in the export. That's right. This isn't a scrub. This is a tagging system. It could become a scrub at some point, Lightning Capital, but there's so many places that we're pulling data from. It's really hard to do that in real time, but certainly could come to a place where it is a scrub. As it stands now, it's currently a tagging system. So it's labeling in a column in your spreadsheet, and then you can dictate what you want to do with that data from there. Lightning Land Capital, where's the puppy? Good question. I don't know how you actually know this, man. Somehow you got some inside knowledge. I am getting another beautiful English bulldog. He's coming to us in 3 weeks here in Bali. So Gloria is going to have a brother. It's my first time having 2 dogs at the same time. It's going to be insane. I love naming bulldogs terrible, weird names. Like our current bulldog, Gloria, her full name is Gloria Ignacio Healy. Just weird. Our new bulldog is Bruce Willis Healy. I don't know. I love the weird names. I think bulldogs are such funny, ornery, just grumpy, funny little dogs that they got to have like a frumpy name. They got to have like a very funny name. Bar, sounds sick. Anyone here wants a JVM partner in those kinds of deals, please send a message in Discord for sure. For sure. Speaking of messages, guys, let's get some questions in the chat. Drop a message in there. Let's dive in. Let's chat about your business. Let's chat about goals. Let's chat about problems, constraints, issues, questions about my business. I'm an open book. Drop it in the chat and I'll take a look. Ooh, little rhyming scheme for you guys, huh? Also, if you guys haven't already, I'm gonna put the link here. Most of you guys may or may not know this, but Land Insights is now free to some extent. About 3 months ago, we released two new plans on Land Insights: Lite, which is free, no subscription, and Starter, which is $47 a month. You guys, if you want to make a free account and you haven't already, you can just go to this link here and make a free account, just as an FYI. Where's Gloria? Gloria's at home. She's actually allowed in the studio. I do bring her here sometimes, but I think she'd be a little too rambunctious, man. I think she'd be a little too crazy today. So I left her at home with Sarah. Um, Denny. So scale up meaning include multiple counties at once. We usually pull multiple counties at once to speed things up and get the largest number of leads. Yeah, for sure. Denny, I think that's spot on. The way I think about a lot of the work in your business is like front loading or time, like really time blocking. So like when you export data, like just time block for that and pull 2 weeks worth or 4 weeks worth of data. Just go crazy with it. Instead of like pulling data every single day. So absolutely, if Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever is your data pulling day, which I recommend having a recurring day on your calendar where on that day, that's my data pulling day. Yeah, go crazy, go pull multiple counties, go buck wild with it, pull all your data and then market off of it. I know a guy, right? I met him briefly, who I think he pulls all of his data for the quarter in one day or something crazy like that. And then he sends it out all at once. So he pulls like 100,000 records on a day and literally mails it all out, gets a tidal wave of leads and then works through it. And then next quarter does the same thing. That's pretty insane. So Denny, I like to, bulk export your market selection or bulk export your data. But then of course, I don't like to bulk market. I want my market to be a steady drip so I don't get big peaks and troughs in my lead flow because that's very hard to manage. So market steady, drip, 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 but you can pull in big chunks. Mr. Spalmero, missed the answer. Can we go back to old lists? I might need you to clarify. Let me see if I can see your question here, Mr. Spalmero. I don't know if I can see your question. You might need to add it down below just so I know the context. You said, missed the answer. Can we go back to old lists? Let me know what you're referring to here there. So SellerIQ should still work for survey hack homeowner leads. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We're not doing any property scrubbing with SellerIQ. So you still get to dictate what kind of properties show up in there. So it's not like you toggle SellerIQ and it's going to be like, oh, it's only showing you, non-landlocked properties that don't have houses. You still dictate the kinds of properties that show up in your list. It's just motivation filtering. How do you still pull so much data monthly? Is it just pulling same counties over time? Don't you run out of counties? Yeah, dude, it's a good question, Aaron. It's a good question. We pull on average about 300,000 records a month. It's a lot of data, man. It's a lot of freaking data. How do we make that work? Well, we do refresh our lists. So some of it is remarketing and we do refresh those lists because things change. Back in the day, I used to refresh my lists maybe once a year. Now we might do that a bit more frequently, maybe every 6 months or every 3 months. So there is a list refresh component where we are pulling from the same markets. But of course, at marketing scale, you do need to drop some of your requirements on market selection. So, some of our markets, we can't just find all home run 300% STR markets to pull that much data. So at volume, you do make some sacrifices into how great those markets are. Also, Aaron, in a lot of cases, when we initially start in a market, we might not hit all of the property sizes, but we might go back and say, okay, we hit the 10 to 1,000 acres and maybe we'll pull, if that plays out and we like the market, we'll come back and maybe we'll pull 1 acre to 10 acres or whatever. So sometimes we'll pull additional groupings of properties. I don't really like pulling sub 1 acre properties. Like when I go through our data, it's just not what we do well with for whatever reason. So I'm always north of 1 acre. We do get some smaller properties that we buy, but it's usually like additional inventory that a seller has. I don't deliberately pursue it. So there's that. But yeah, it's a lot of marketing. One of the other things that we do is we'll actually, in some cases, reject Land Insights market selection, and we'll go like, let's say we find a hot market, Aaron, in Land Insights. We go and market to it, it crushes. Let's say the adjacent market doesn't look hot in Land Insights, but we sold a deal in the county that we pulled, and let's say we had a hunting property and there was just a crap ton of demand, like it just like flew off the shelves. Well, if the adjacent counties also have hunting inventory and it's a similar market in terms of how the county's laid out and the kind of land that's available, even if it's not boiling hot in Land Insights, I'll kind of extrapolate, hey, if there's hunting demand in this county, I might pull that over to the adjacent counties. So we also do kind of branch out and touch what's surrounding it, so long as it's similar, right? So like it has to be a similar county in terms of similar inventory and just kind of a similar layout, if that makes sense. And so in some cases, we will fly in the face of what's shown in the market selection Land Insights, because of course it's just the best guess. There are killer markets out there that look like crap on Land Insights, but you'll sell a deal in 7 days. I mean, maybe it's just right time, right place, but the data that we see, it can't tell the full story. So sometimes we'll get golden information from our own marketing that we'll extrapolate out. And that's why, like, I can't stress this enough. The most valuable thing that you have in your business is your own data. It's magic, people. I don't think enough people spend time studying their own data, right? If you're getting a bunch of buyer leads and they're looking for X, Y, and Z in a market, listen to that. Or if you go look at your data and you're saying we crush at the 10s to 20s and we do horrible at the 1s to 2s, I'll probably stop marketing to the 1s to 2s. You start to find these patterns in your data. And so I listen to that, even if it flies in the face sometimes of market selection data and Land Insights. Bars. I'm looking for a badass closer sales rep. Where did you find your people? Good question. Let me ask you this, Bars. Are you looking overseas? Are you looking US? Or do you not care? So let's specify in the comments. I would love to know. Yeah, let's talk about that. Really hard to do, honestly. Finding great sales talent and keeping them is not easy. Now, if we're going US, I like to look for people that were in commission only sales roles. They're savages. Those are the hunters. Okay. So I don't care about previous land or real estate experience necessarily. It doesn't really matter to me. But I'm looking for people that were doing door-to-door sales, selling solar, selling security systems, or any kind of commission only grinder sale where they're grinding. Like, it's a grind. Those are the folks that I want. Those are like the eat what you kill kind of people. So for the US sales rep, commission only folks is where it's at, in my opinion. Where do you find them? I mean, there's Facebook groups for folks that are in those industries. Obviously, LinkedIn is something that we use. You can use the paid LinkedIn feature, so it'll like push your listing out more. Indeed is okay. For me, our best hiring funnel, bar none, has been social media. So Instagram, YouTube, showing myself and what we do. There's a lot of folks that might watch your stuff that are really good fits. And so that's been incredible for us. We found so many great people just by putting ourselves out there online. And so that's been really, really potent for us. Now, and one other thing too that I'll add in, Bars, there is a ton of ex-land investors, people that tried land and quickly realized, I am not cut out to be a business owner, but they still have a passion for land. We've had more people than I can count. I don't know, maybe 30, 50, I don't know, a big number of LIA members that have hired people that are in our community. So like they'll go into Discord in the general channels or whatever, and they'll put a job posting out. And I know a lot of LIA members that their main hiring funnel is our Discord. Same thing with our Facebook group. And so you can find a lot of people there that know land, that are good at sales, but they're just like, I can't, I'm not meant to run a business. Or they just don't have the money to run a business yet. So maybe they work with you for a year or two as a stepping stone. They learn the ropes and then they move on to their own business. And that's fine. You know, not everyone's going to be with you forever. But those are what I've had in my business to be the most potent, and then what I've seen other LIA members have the most success with. I literally can't stress enough. There's so many killer LIA members that literally just hire out of our Discord. Now, overseas, it's actually a little harder, I would say. I don't have a clear pattern. Well, I have some patterns on who's going to be a good sales rep, but it's not perfect. So when we think about overseas, geography matters a lot. So when we're hiring in the US, I don't care if someone lives in California or Texas, it doesn't really matter. Good salespeople are everywhere. When you're looking at the whole entire world, there are certain corners of the world where people are more salesy than other corners of the world. So for sales talent, if I'm looking at the entire globe, places like Southeast Asia haven't been great for hiring salespeople. So Philippines, Indonesia, things like that. I just don't find great sales talent there. More admin, back office stuff, really good at that. A lot of people try to hire sales talent out of the Philippines, and you can, but I just don't find that they're just not savages on the phone on average. Of course, I'm making a huge generalization. But if we look at sales talent in places like Egypt, in some cases, Pakistan, Central America, Latin America, those are like the real hubs. So I would be starting my search there. Okay, that would be like my first thing, is kind of filtering by geography. And then you got to really sift through a lot of applicants. You're going to get a ton of people reaching out to you, and a lot of them aren't going to be great fits. One of the best hiring places for us is literally just Facebook groups. Like if you just go like LATAM VAs or whatever, like there's like these groups of people that congregate that are looking for jobs, and you can put job listings in there. That's been really potent for us. You can use something like Indeed.com with a VPN and go put job listings in, you know, wherever, Cairo, Egypt. You can also figure out what the job listing platforms are for that market, use a VPN and set up an account. So some countries use different, you know, platforms that we've probably never heard of, and use a VPN, set up an account, put job listings there. That can be really fruitful. For us, though, what we've done is once we find a stellar team member in a market, they kind of become a bit of our recruiter. Good people know good people. Birds of a feather flock together kind of thing. And so we find great talent, and then they start pulling more talent for us. And that's been really helpful. So we hired an amazing gal out of Egypt about a year ago. Her name's Eva. She's incredible. And Eva has brought us so many team members because, again, good people know good people. And so that's been like a domino effect for us. Last thing I'll say on that note is when you're looking at their resume or job history, look for people that had a long tenure. You'll see with VAs, there's a lot of job hopping. They're there for 1 year, then they move to a new job, and 6 months in a new job. I don't like that. Instead, what I look for is people that were in a role and actually got promoted and promoted and promoted and promoted. So that's like a really strong signal. And then ultimately with sales talent, you just got to test, bring them in, do a 4-week pilot test. You know what I mean? We just lost a lot of people during this process. So I guess a lot of people aren't interested in hiring. Guys, I can't stress enough. It's a very important part of your success. So hopefully that helps. Meaning the other lists we have downloaded in the past. Yeah, so currently we can't re-upload those in Scrub. At some point we'll add that in, much like the skip tracing section, Mr. Spilmero, where you can go in and you can skip trace an old list. Right now it's for a new list, but we will add it in at some point where you can do that. It was really just a time constraint. We wanted to bring this out at the beginning of the new year. So that will be updated. Bars, can you tell me more about LIA 2.0? Like other than 2 live coaching calls a week, what can we expect? Yeah, good question. So LIA 2.0 bars is built on top of School. So School is the platform that we use to host the community. Okay. Inside of School, we've got a private community, much like you would see, I don't know, inside of Discord. So private channels just for our members where you get access to the LIA coaching staff. We think about that like real-time questions. Hey, I'm confused about this deal. Hey, I'm confused about my marketing. Hey, blah, 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 fill in the blank. questions come up, we review them there. So that's like the real-time pulse. That's kind of the hub of the community, is built on top of school, which is very similar to Discord. Those are all private channels where you get access to the team of LIA coaches. We run 2 group coaching calls per month. We do a group onboarding call. So when folks join inside of LIA, we do a one-on-one onboarding call. Inside of here, we do a group onboarding call when folks join. You get access to all of the discounts that we've negotiated for all of the tools that you need in your business. You get 30 days of free access to Land Insights Pro just for joining LIA 2.0. So you get Land Insights Pro for 30 days for free on top of your LIA 2.0 subscription. And of course, you get access to the LIA 2.0 course. Really, like, my whole thing with coaching is I just want to work with beginners. That's where I feel like I have the most impact. Okay. Of course, we could work with high-level people, and I'm sure there's things that we could help with. But I love taking someone that was like me in 2019 and helping to build a business that changes their life. To me, I just think that's where we have the most impact. So the thesis with LIA has always been, how do we create education that's the straightest line path to building a 6-figure land investing business? That's always been the thesis. That means that we don't teach you everything under the sun. LIA 2.0 is not going to teach you about paper lot entitlements and rezonings because it's not relevant to that straight line path. So that's the thesis with LIA 1.0. It's a thesis with LIA 2.0. With LIA 2.0, though, I think the way the education is structured, we've made it even shorter, even more linear to get you to that point. Because the truth is, every single person that joins LIA, they say the same thing. I want freedom. Okay. How much money do you need to make to be free? They say, I need to make 150 grand to leave my job, 200 grand, whatever the number is. It's different for every person, but it's always over 6 figures. Now, of course, there's no promise on timelines, right? And LIA 2.0 doesn't have a guarantee like LIA 1.0. And even beyond that, everyone's timeline is going to look different. We've seen folks inside of LIA that have gotten to the 6-figure mark in 6 months. We've seen people that has taken them 18 months. So there's no like, oh, it's going to happen at this date. But the education is structured in a way where it's the most frictionless linear path to getting there. Now, the cool thing with LIA 2.0 that I think we've done a really good job with, though, and this just comes from coaching, 500 plus people over the last couple of years, is meeting you where you're at. You see, there's a few different categories that people come into starting a land business with. There's a person that comes in that's got money, but they got a job. Okay. So they don't have time. You're a male candidate. There's the people that come in that have a lot of time, but they have no money. Great. You're a cold call candidate and you're probably cold calling yourself to start. There's the people that come in that have not a lot of time, but they have money, but they're not data people. They're salespeople. Great. You should be building your own internal cold call team to start, right? So we're meeting these people where they're at in their journey. The other thing that we've learned through the last couple of years of coaching is, in the beginning, the biggest value drivers for people's success is market selection, how you underwrite deals. So understanding value of a property. It's not easy to do. Knowing this is worth X and I should offer Y. And then having an acquisition process that's going to convert the highest number of people to verbal offers, to contract sent, to contract signed. And then having the skill on the phone to actually convert that. Being able to build rapport and build trust and then negotiate when it matters. Those are like the real levers in the beginning. And so when we look at how the education is structured, it's overemphasizing those points. Now, that stuff was covered in LIA 1.0, but we put it on steroids. Stab it in the arm. Boom. Because I've just found that if you can get good at those things, that's how you go from getting to a 6-figure business in 12 months opposed to 24 months. And so the way the education is structured has also changed. Now, on top of that, one thing that I think is interesting, Bars, inside of LIA, we run, I think it's 16 coaching calls a month, something along those lines. Inside of LIA 2.0, we run 8 coaching calls per month. So we had to devise a system for the education that's more leveraged. And the way that we did that is the education gets dripped out daily. It's like showing up to class. Every single day you're getting notified that you've got to go through these sections and then you're getting quizzed on those sections, and then you're doing homework on those sections. It's literally like going to college. I wanted to create guardrails because what happens is lovingly, some people come in and they're super slow to take action on the education. Or some people come in and they watch 1/3 of LIA and then they start taking a boatload of action, but they're not educated yet. So I wanted to put guardrails on to actually ensure that you absorb the information and you adhere to it every single day, just like showing up to class. Because beyond like strategies or techniques or anything like that, what matters in the beginning is education. That is your greatest advantage, is becoming educated. So I think we've done a better job of creating like a class curriculum and a class design to where every single day you're going through this and then there's guardrails and you're being quizzed on it and you're reviewing the work and you're putting rubber to the road. So that's what I would say, Bars. Denny, are estate trust-owned properties worth keeping? I get a lot of these when doing pulling leads. Yeah, Denny, you shouldn't actually get that many. Most data sets don't have a ton, to be honest. Usually makes up a small percentage, but yes, they are worth keeping. In my opinion, those are great prospects, really good prospects. One thing that I do recommend removing, see if I can stop my screen. So I'm going to share this screen. So I'll just pull you guys into Land Insights real quick. So I keep the corporate owners on. I know some people want to remove them. I keep it on because I want trusts and things like that. Those can be great prospects. But one thing that I do is I come down here and I remove LLCs. That's just me personally. Some people have great success with LLCs. I don't. I don't know why. We don't really create many opportunities there for the kinds of deals that we're pursuing. Back in the day when we used to go after a lot of smaller deals, we had great success there. So nowadays we just don't. So I keep the corporate owners, which means trust and things like that, but I remove the LLCs. Trust can be great prospects. Now, dealing with trusts and estates, it usually is a more complicated sales process and sales cycle. So just as an FYI, usually there's more stakeholders, but they can be great opportunities. How many deals you double close compared to buy or JV with an investor? Yeah, good question. So we don't do JVs pretty much ever. We self-fund all of our inventory because our margins are a lot better that way. It's a really easy way to juice up your margins, right? Save 20, 30, 40%, whatever you're paying to JV funders, and self-fund. So if you get to the point, in the beginning, I don't recommend that. But if you get to the point where you have built up some capital in your business, you can certainly think about that. It's a good way to improve your margins. Maybe 5 deals a year go to JV funders. It's not like we never use them, but it's very rare. And probably about a handful of deals, I don't know, 1 to 3, we'll use debt on, some variant of debt annually. Now, the split between what I would call cash closing and double closing, we are predominantly a cash closing business. So over a majority of our deals are cash closes. You might say, well, why, Sumner? Because if I've worked my tail off to get an incredible deal, I want to secure my position in it. If you do a double closing or whatever, you'll realize that a certain percentage of them will fall apart. So if I've got a great deal, I want to secure my position in that deal. Now, in some cases, we will do what we call an extended cash close. This is a hybrid model where we will have a property that we intend to cash close, but we do have the ability to test the market with that property. So inside of our contract, we have the ability to do that. We might have 60 days to do it, and then we cash close. So I call that like a market penetration test. So in some of the deals, we'll test the market. Now you could do that on Facebook. You could do it on MLS. There's many ways to do it. Make sure that we read the deal correctly in terms of value, and then cash close there or renegotiate if we have to. But I'm a big fan of cash closing. I also think that if you're working with the right sellers, a lot of them, time does matter. Sometimes there's sellers where time just doesn't matter at all. But for most of the sellers, time is an important factor. So I want to be convenient for the folks that sell to us. I think that's important. Meet them where they're at. Check the box for them. And so I see people that are trying to put a square peg in a round hole. The seller needs to sell quickly, but they're trying to lock them up on a 180-day contract or something like that. And so we really try to let the seller decide what option is best for them. In a lot of cases, that's cash closing. So it's the majority for us. Aaron, how many cold callers do you have, and how quickly are refreshing list in your ready mode dialer? We've got 3 cold callers in our business, Aaron. How quickly are we refreshing the list in our dialer? God, I don't know the answer, to be honest. I'm sorry, Aaron. I would have to talk to my team. I think I posted this in Discord maybe a week or 2 ago answering this. I don't know the exact answer. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There are parts of the business that I am not in the day-to-day on. So I don't know exactly the speed that we're refreshing our lists. In December, we moved around one of our team members that now manages our acquisition managers, our cold callers, and our appointment setter. So I am pretty far removed from the management, the process, all of that stuff as it relates to those parts of the business. How are you and the team actually filtering out the non-sellers from the real ones interested? Yeah, as I mentioned before, we're not going to reveal the black box of how it's created just because it's the secret sauce, right? But what I will say is we look at 100 plus data points, and we've back tested this with my business, with Ryland's business over the last 2 years, and found the patterns and the commonalities. As I said before, some are obvious, some are non-obvious, to create a tagging system: high probability, medium probability, low probability. Now, one thing that is included in that tagging system is the availability of data. So if the data availability is low for a prospect, that will downgrade them as well. So that is a component. There could be a misdiagnosis there for lack of data. That happens. There's only, like, data quality is what it is. It's not perfect. So there could be a low probability seller that turns out to be pretty motivated. But when we go back and we look at our business in the last 2 years, only one deal that we did was low probability. So there's clearly a trend there, clearly. But, the data is not always perfect for every record. More like US-based sales reps. Yeah, we covered that. Maddie just got a killer sales rep, and turns out he worked for Ryland 2 years ago, and he's got a bunch of land experience, and he's crushing it. No way, Maddie. I wonder who it is. Is it a guy named Ryan? I wonder who it is. I'd love to know. How much would you pay a US acquisition manager? Yeah. It can range, but depending on the business. So I think that you more need to think about on track earnings and then reverse engineer how your business is structured to get them there. Because everyone's business, I'm sorry, my nose is super itchy. Everyone's business might look a little bit different. You, like Lindsay, you might do one subdivide a quarter that makes you 400 grand or something, something like that. So we want to think about OTE. What's OTE? I think on the low end, $65,000, $70,000. That's blending base salary and commission. And high end, 200, 250,000 if they really crush it, could be more. So you want to reverse engineer how to get there based off of your own business's numbers. Now, generally, what that would look like would be, you could do an hourly or you do a base salary. Base salary, $30,000 a year, something like that. And then in terms of gross profit on a deal, could be 6%, 7%, 10%. So it could fluctuate based off of that. So somewhere in that range. I think what's average is probably 7.5 to 10%. But again, your deal volume, the kinds of deals that you're doing, their involvement in those deals, all of that needs to be considered. But really, you need to achieve that OTE number. That's more the goal above anything else. So yeah. How long does each daily lesson last? Mr. Spelmero asks. It does range. Some days are more dense than others. I would budget an hour per day at least. Some days will be a little longer, but probably about 45 minutes, an hour per day, something along those lines, Mr. Spilmero. Peter says, nice watch. Thank you, man. Yeah, it's the Celebration watch. It's got a pretty cool face on it. They didn't make too many of them. So I kind of like, I'm a sucker for making sure I get a good deal. I don't know. I mean, who knows if this will appreciate? I don't know. But I like things that are limited run. And so hopefully it was a good buy. It's great. I like it. AJ says sales process. What do you mean by that, AJ? I'd love to clarify. Okay. Yeah, I see that. I'll hit. Oh, no, it's a different question. From AJ, I'll hit on your question. Oh, that's the same question. Sorry. I'll hit on that in a second. Got confused. Aaron, your cold callers are higher level LATAM and Egypt, or just standard callers just to find interested sellers? Yeah. So right now we have 2 cold callers in Egypt, and we actually do have 1 cold caller in the Philippines. Kind of breaking my own rule, if you will. Of course, when we think about geography or nationality, it's a generalization. It's not perfect. Interestingly enough, our cold caller from the Philippines does generate the most leads, but in terms of the quality of deals, we do see a difference out of Egypt, at least from what I've seen. And of course, training can solve a lot of this. You can train someone if they're open to it, but they got to be good on the phones for starters. I think we are very high level with our cold calling, very high level, Aaron. I think a lot of people are doing standard cold calling, or whatever you want to call it, which is like cast a very wide net, talk to a lot of people, have a 5-minute convo, something like that. And that works. That certainly works. I've run that strategy. It works. You generate more leads. But what we've settled on in our own business personally is much more of an in-depth approach, going deeper with our prospects that we get on the phone, opposed to going very wide. So that means we do make less calls, but we serve up really primed candidates to our acquisition managers. And right now, the qualitative feedback from our acquisition team, our highest quality leads are coming from cold calling, just the warmest, best prospects. And I think that's not necessarily a feature of cold calling. It's more of a feature of how we cold call, our approach there. Now, inside of LIA 2.0, we break down again how to kind of replicate our cold calling process, how to bring in your own cold call team. We show you how to do it yourself. That's obviously pretty intuitive. And then we do show you how to use an agency. So we did partner with Land Callers, which you can use inside of LIA 2.0 for your own business. And it certainly works. And we have a discount for LIA members. And I ran a study in my business using them for 3 months. And they're more of like a volume wider approach, and both work. But I would rather serve up more qualified leads to our team. AJ says, what are the things that matter? Sales process, comps, and market selection. So yeah, it goes market selection. And the cool thing about LIA 2.0, which wasn't in the current form of LIA, is everything is built in the Land Insights ecosystem. So in LIA currently, there is confusion, right? Because there's a new way of running the business that is kind of built on top of Land Insights. So all of it's blended in. It's all melded together. Exactly how I use Land Insights is exactly shown in the program. So there's no disconnect there. But the first thing is